Welcome to module 2 of the free high-ticket e-commerce YouTube course, and today we are going to be covering market research in choosing your niche. I'm going to be giving away thousands of dollars of free value throughout this course, so all I ask is if you could please support me by hitting the subscribe button below, liking this video, and I will answer any and all comments on this video. So if you have any questions at all about market research or picking your niche, be sure to comment them below and I'll respond. Other than that, let's dive right into market research. So this video is going to be on selecting a highly profitable niche in 2023 and how to do market research properly. We'll dive right into it. The first thing I want to cover is the difference between a broad store and a niche store. And this distinction is very important. So just go over some of the differences with you. A broad store is a higher level category. So something that's a little bit broader that has a number of different products on the store. So an example would be home. That's a very broad store. So anything that you would have in your home would be on a broad store like this. Another broad store example that is a little bit more niche is fitness. So fitness could go into a home store because you could have like a home fitness or a home gym. But fitness is also very broad. You have treadmills, working out equipment, rowers, bikes, MMA stuff. Like the list is endless of fitness. It's a very broad category itself, but it's still a little bit more niche than home. With home, you have kitchen stuff, you have fitness stuff, you have backyard stuff. The list is endless. And here I've just linked an example of a very broad store, just so you can see what I mean by broad. You have outdoor structures, bathroom vanities, tubs, saunas, all sorts of stuff on here you can see. So anything and everything. This is just like a general home store, the example I gave you. The other type of store is a niche store. And a niche store usually sells like one type of product or a group of related products. I'm going to get into the advantages and disadvantages of each of these types of stores in just a minute. But an example of a niche store would be a sauna store. So it's obviously going to sell saunas, but there's multiple different types of saunas. There's infrared saunas, barrel saunas, traditional saunas, sauna heaters. So there's not necessarily one product type. There's a few. You have like the different types of saunas. Maybe you have like steam showers and stuff on there. But generally speaking, it's quite limited and a lot more narrow than a broad store on something like home or fitness. So just an example of a niche store for you is something like Northern Saunas. So you can see they have saunas. They have all the different types of saunas, barrel saunas, cabin saunas, infrared, all these different sauna types. They have heaters, they have commercial saunas, but everything on this store is pretty much centered around saunas, where Ambient Home is selling saunas is one category of many on their store. Just get very clear on this distinction, and it's not a fine line. It's not like it's either narrow or broad. There can be a happy medium where you're niche but still have a whole bunch of different product types. And we'll get into that at the end. But I just want to have kind of this thought process in your mind, the difference between either broad versus narrow and kind of the spectrum that they may fall on. And now we will dive into the advantages and disadvantages of each broad and narrow store. The main advantage is you have an endless list of suppliers to contact. So in high-ticket e-commerce, the main fundamental component of a seven-figure store is getting high-end suppliers to work with, and ones that will give you good margins, they're excellent to work with, and they have branded search demand, which means that people are already searching for the brand. A broad store, you have so many different product types that you have literally thousands and thousands of suppliers to contact, which makes things very simple. Let's say you start your broad store in the kitchen niche, and then you get a couple suppliers that do well, and then you stop, you kind of reach them all, you've closed them all, or you've contacted them all at least. Then you can easily just go on to your backyard and start adding backyard suppliers. The list is literally endless. And if you need to pivot amongst different niches, you're able to very seamlessly because you are essentially selling a whole bunch of different niches on your store. So it makes your life very easy to pivot. You can essentially just build out your store into perpetuity, and you're never going to really run out of categories because your list is so broad. The advantage of having endless suppliers like that is it's conducive to faster results. And what I mean by that is the easiest way to get fast results in high-ticket e-com is to close some high-end suppliers and run ads to them. And you can do that within a month or two. So since you have literally hundreds, if not thousands of suppliers that you can contact, it's very easy to just close until you get some high-end ones, run some ads, and you're getting results right away. You have a higher chance of success on your one store because it's so broad that you can just keep contacting suppliers and keep pivoting into different niches until you find something that clicks. You're not restricted whatsoever. So if you start with kitchen appliances or espresso machines or something, and then you need to pivot to, I don't know, saunas, and then that doesn't work, then you can pivot to, who knows what you pivot to. Maybe you pivot to bathroom vanities, and then that doesn't work. You can constantly pivot that eventually you will have success success on this one store because there's literally so many suppliers, so many product types that one is bound to click for you. And another cool advantage of this is you can start broad. You can start by saying, I'm going to do home. And then as you start going and contacting suppliers, you can niche down with what you have success with. So maybe you start with, I don't know, something broad like fitness, and then you're closing suppliers, and maybe treadmills really take off for you. Then your fitness store can become a treadmill themed store where that's your core product. You still sell other fitness stuff, but they're complementary to your main, like your homepage has treadmills on it. All your best suppliers are from treadmills. Most of your sales are treadmills, but you still have these other categories that round out your sales for you that kind of like add additional revenue or add-ons and upsells to your main core product. So if you start broad, you can test a whole bunch of stuff, see what works, and really narrow in there. And that's a big advantage and super advantageous, especially when you're starting out. You're not restricted. You can start very broad and then niche down as you go. The disadvantages of a broad store is your conversion rate will usually be lower. So just think, for example, a store like Northern Saunas. They're literally only selling saunas. So if someone's going to their store, they're usually looking for a sauna. So naturally, a higher percentage of people who visit their store will end up buying because they're only selling one real thing. So all the visitors will be interested in that one thing. If you're selling a whole array of different items, who knows who's going to end up on your store? And they may be even turned off by your lack of specialty in that one thing. So if you're buying a sauna and you're going to spend $8,000 online and you go to a store that sells just saunas, you probably feel comfortable that they are experts in that one thing. And you may be more comfortable buying a sauna from a store like Northern Saunas, like this, that's all about saunas, than Ambient Home, which is literally just like they sell one tiny category of saunas. So you may feel more comfortable, and they even may be more knowledgeable. Their team may be more knowledgeable than a store like Ambient Home. So your conversion rate will usually be higher on a niche store. So you have a lower conversion rate on a broad store. It can be very difficult to rank for SEO. So when Google is ranking people for free traffic, they want experts in that space to show on page one. So it's very hard for Ambient Home, let's say, to be an expert in all these things. So it will be difficult for them to rank SEO-wise. So domain rating is the power of a website on a scale of 0 to 100. So if you take a broad store with a domain rating of 30 and a very niche store with a domain rating of 30, the niche store will have a ton more free traffic, usually about 10x, I would say, than a broad store. And it's for this reason. Because if you're a niche store and you're only selling one thing, Google will see you, all your blogs are about one thing, all your products are one thing, your homepage is about one thing. You're an expert in that one thing. So Google will see you as an expert and be more willing to rank you on that one thing in the search results and get you free traffic. That's not to say that it's impossible to rank with a broad store. And the way that you would do this is you would really, kind of how I said before, you'd start broad and you'd pick something that clicked for you, and then you would center your store on that theme. So you would have maybe, let's say, saunas on your homepage. All your blogs are about saunas. Your content's about saunas. You're making a whole bunch of sauna sales, but you still have these other categories. Maybe you have something like other, and then your different things are there, but your first category is saunas, and mainly your store is centered around saunas, but you have other complementary categories. You could still rank that way because it's showing Google that you're really focusing on one thing, but you still would probably not do as well as a niche store selling one specific product. It's more administratively complex. So when you're dealing with hundreds of suppliers and maybe you close 50 to 100 after a year or two, you're going to have a lot more relationships to manage. And there's ways around this. You can use Monday.com, Trello, Notion, all sorts of these tools to keep things organized, but it's a lot more administratively complex than if you're selling just like 10, 15 suppliers on a niche store. It's more difficult to have a brand. So if you look at these two stores, it's pretty obvious as an example. Like this store is Ambient Home. They don't really have a brand, right? Like they're just selling a whole bunch of stuff. It's more of just a marketplace, which is fine. You can make lots of sales doing that. But this store here, Northern Saunas, it actually looks like they have a brand. Like it's all about saunas. Like people probably are more familiar with the Northern Saunas brand name than Ambient Home, just because it's a lot easier to speak directly to your customer. So rather than, like, let's say you start an abandoned checkout and then you leave. Ambient Home's going to say you missed your item in the checkout. Here's the link to it. Northern Saunas can be like, you're going to miss your hot sauna session this February. Don't you think it would be nice to stay warm in the cold? And you can speak directly to your customer because you're so niche. And that will give you an advantage in terms of building your brand. That's kind of the advantages and disadvantages of a broad store. And now we will dive into the advantages and disadvantages of a niche store. So the advantages of a niche store is it's very easy to rank for SEO because you're only specializing in one thing. So Google sees you as an expert and is more willing to rank you for that thing, which will lead to free traffic. You'll have a higher conversion rate because you're only selling one thing. Everyone on your store is usually interested in that one thing, or else why would they be there? You will usually have higher profit margins in the long run. And the reason for that is it relates to point one. It's easier to rank for SEO. So a broad store, you're going to be very reliant upon paid traffic. So every sale you make, you're paying for. So let's say after cost of goods sold and shipping, you get 25 to 30% margin. If you're spending 10% of that product cost to acquire the customer, you will net around 10 to 15% after your cost of goods sold, shipping, and ads. Contrarily, if you had made that same sale on a niche store through organic traffic, you would keep the 25 to 30% because you didn't pay for the sale because it came for free. So we usually have a bit of a higher profit margin in the long run on a niche store, but you may have lower revenue because you have way less suppliers to contact. But it's administratively easier because you're only managing a few supplier relationships versus like 50 to 100. Another advantage is it also gives you the ability to have strong branding on your store, even as a high ticket dropshipping store, which is very important. The disadvantages are you have a limited list of suppliers. So if you're selling saunas, there might only be 20 sauna suppliers in the US. And once you contact and close them, you're kind of out of luck. And then you have to focus on getting more traffic through SEO. And you can't just add more suppliers endlessly and boost your sales through ads because you only have a limited number. And the thing is, if a niche you pick doesn't work, it's not like you can just keep pivoting and adding a whole bunch of different categories with new suppliers. If your niche that you select does not work for you and it's not clicking, you may need to start from scratch in a new narrow niche, which isn't the end of the world. It only takes a couple days to set up shop, but it can get frustrating if you're just constantly restarting versus just having one store that you can just continuously add new categories on. And usually with a niche store, it takes a little bit longer to see results, but you can't just close like 50 suppliers in your first 3 months and run ads to them. There's usually a limited number of suppliers. So usually you want to make your sales and really focus on organic traffic and SEO, and it's much easier to rank for SEO, but it will still take 6 to 12 months to really see the fruits of your SEO work that you're doing on your store. So a little bit longer to see results. So really there's advantages and disadvantages to each of these. And you need to kind of ask yourself based on what you're trying to do, what seems to be more favorable and what you would prefer. When you're doing your market research template, which I have here, I'm going to link this below the video. So if you want to do this yourself, I will link this below. I'm just going to show you kind of a live example of how I would do market research. So you're going to have your high level niches or narrow niches. And you want to do it by category. So for each category, let's say I'm doing category, I'll do 2 for you. I'll do one broad example and one narrow example. So a broad example may be something like biohacking. In a niche store example, maybe something like saunas. So for each of these, what we want to do is we want to find all of the product types in this niche. So biohacking, what I'll do is I'm just going to think of all the products that one would maybe consider for biohacking if you're having a biohacking store. So for example, saunas, cryotherapy chambers, hyperbaric chambers, cold plunge tubs, red light therapy, halotherapy, body fat composition monitor, air purifier, water filtration system, home gym. You get the idea. So there, you just want to round this list out as much as you possibly can for products in that niche. And then what you want to do is you want to make sure you put your VPN on. You want your search to be where you're selling your item. So for me, I'm in Dubai right now. I'm going to put my VPN to the US before I go do this next section. So what we want to do is we want to go to Google and type in simply buy, and then you want to take the product type and you want to put buy the product type online. Buy, like this. And what you're looking for is some of them are going to be very obvious, but you just want to make sure on average that the price point is over $1,000 for this product. So you can see here, price all over the place. There's a big contingent of them over $1,000. So all we really need to do here is just put yes. I'm not going to do all of them in this video, but what you want to do is you put yes. And then for demand, you want to use a keyword tool. You can use SEMrush, Ubersuggest. They have both free trials for 7 days or a month. Moz is also one with free trials. Ahrefs is what I use, but there is no free trial. If you are ever going to pay for one, I recommend Ahrefs. But if you want to just use for free for now, Moz, SEMrush, Ubersuggest. And what you want to do is you want to type in the product type here. So you want to put in like this, and then we just want to get the demands. We can see there's 186,000 monthly searches for sauna. So we just put in here 186,000. And then what we want to do is put in the peak months. So there won't always be peak months, but here you can see there's these little humps. We can see it kind of starts in November and it goes till April pretty consistently, to be honest with you. November, April. So what we would do here is put peak months November to April. And you want to do that for each one, obviously. For brand loyalty, what that means is when you buy something, but you're buying it for the brand. So if you're buying a cell phone, you're usually going to buy an Apple or an Android. And the reason you're buying it is because as soon as you think cell phone, you think Apple, Android. As soon as you think sauna, nothing probably pops into your mind. And that's a good thing. So very much like if you think I'm buying a cold plunge tub, you're not having brands just instantly pop in your mind, which is good. That's what we want. We don't want brand loyalty because usually those are very, very difficult to high ticket dropship. Just ask yourself that question. If when you think of the product, are you thinking of brands in your head? And if you can't, then you can probably put no here, which is what we want. We also want some element of uniqueness. This is more important on a narrow store than a broad store. If something is not unique, it's probably competitive. On a broad store, we have so many different product types and so many different suppliers. It doesn't really matter if we face a bit of competition because just by volume alone, we're gonna find some that end up working. Or if we're very niche and we're only selling one product type, and it's super competitive and not unique, then we may have a very, very hard time. So this example that I'm doing right now is broad, so it's not as important. So saunas I wouldn't say are unique. I would probably say like everything on here is not really unique. Halotherapy, maybe a bit unique, maybe. But other than that, I would say for the most part, not unique products, but it's not a big deal because we're doing a broad store here. What you want to do is fill this out. I would recommend that you pick like 5 to 10 niches to do this sort of research on and do a mix of kind of like broader ones and narrower ones. And once you do it, you can just add it to your list here and you can just pick an aggregate score. So even if some of these are yes, some of them are no, just overall, you just want to put, did the price point largely meet the criteria? Did demand largely meet the criteria? This is yes or no questions here. So here, what we're looking for, probably jump back and discuss this for a minute, but on a broad store, we want to find 10 plus products with over $1,000 price point. So here we want to find 10 products that have a price point of over $1,000. We want ideally it to be non-seasonal, but if we have certain products that are seasonal and they have like peak months in the winter and then other ones happen in the summer, that's fine. Overall, we just don't want like huge swings on all the product types. And seasonality, just because we can offer so many different product types on a broad store, it's not really an issue. Because if, for example, we're going into the summer and we're going to the spring right now, it's February, we could build up products that are peaking in the spring right now. And then in the summer, we could build up products that are peaking in the fall. And we just have so many categories to add that we can just kind of build out our store in silos based upon what's about to peak in the next few months. So not super important for broad. Uniqueness, as I mentioned, is not as important for a broad store. In brand loyalty, we just want to avoid products that are brand loyal. Once we kind of come up with, do this for, when we meet this criteria, we get 10 that have over 1,000. We do all the different research. We just want to answer like yes or no. And ideally we come up with 10 plus product types. Uniqueness, not super important. This isn't a deal breaker. We just want to have a sheet here with all the ones that you actually did the research on is kind of like your home base. After you do, I'm going to do one example for saunas. So we're going to have traditional saunas. You're going to have saunas, but then traditional saunas, infrared saunas, barrel saunas. You're going to have all these different sub sauna product types. Sauna heaters, etc. And for a niche store, we just want there to at least be like 2 product types that have over $1,000 price point. For saunas, it would be saunas and sauna heaters meets the criteria. Demand, the main product type should have at least 3,000 searches per month. So saunas obviously has like 160,000, which is more than enough. But you can get super niche products that almost nobody would think of. You just want them to have a minimum of 3,000 per month. Ideally, for this one, it's much more important because if you're only selling 1 or 2 product types and they're both very seasonal, you're going to see huge swings in sales. And it's not like you're able to continually just add different product types like on a broad store. So ideally, you pick something that's not seasonal for this. So if I go here and I type in sauna, it's a little bit seasonal, but overall, it's really not that bad. Like if I was doing a cryotherapy chamber store, let's see what that would look like. Again, not really seasonal. Hyperbaric chamber, not seasonal. So not seeing huge swings. Just to show you what I mean by seasonal, if I type in fire pit, fireplace even, you can see there's massive swings. So I wouldn't want to have just a fireplace store because it's extremely seasonal. It would be better to niche up and have a bit of a broader store where I could add products that complement it that are peaking in the summer. So these peak in the winter, we could add something like fire pits that peak in the summer. As I mentioned, uniqueness is very important for a niche store. So again, just fill in the research, put it on your master sheet. I will link this below the video, so make sure you do it. I would recommend doing 5 to 10 categories and putting them all in your niche sheet. And usually at that point, you just want to trust your gut. So just some final points before we wrap up. So you can find a happy medium between a broad and niche store. It's not like, oh, we gotta go super broad like home and super niche like just saunas. You can find, and this is probably what I recommend is actually the best case scenario, you wanna find a happy medium. So someone like this, like Mobility Paradise, they're very niche. They're selling to old people, mobility products. So they've kind of carved out their own niche, mobility products for old people. But you can see there's mobility scooters, there's wheelchairs, there's patient care, there's mattresses, hydration charts, pool ladders. There's endless product types. They have so many suppliers they can contact, but they're still selling to one specific target avatar, elderly people, and they're selling a relatively niche product, mobility stuff. And then they have even saunas, wheelchair ramps. Like they've pretty much just started to add everything on their store, which is what I mean. They have a niche, they have a brand, Mobility Paradise, but they're essentially adding everything and anything on the store as complementary products to their main item, which is mobility scooters. So that's what I recommend you do, because all these things here are not related to their niche, but they're adding additional sales while they're still maintaining a strong brand. That's one example. Another example is a recovery for athletes. So they sell very, very common products. They have like fitness equipment, saunas, massage chairs, all very common products, but they're selling them just to athletes. So again, they're targeting a specific avatar. And that is usually how you can create a brand. It's if you sell a whole bunch of stuff, even on a broad store, but you target one specific person like athletes or elderly people or baby boomers, you can actually have a strong brand based around your customer avatar. And that's a key point I wanted to discuss is there's two ways to kind of get around competition. So just to take an example for you, fitness is a very competitive niche overall. And there's two ways that you can get around competition. The first way is by avatar. So if you take a fitness store and you sell to a specific person, then you will mitigate competition because you're selling just to that one person. So then if an athlete goes to your fitness store that's selling recovery for athletes, they will feel better about buying from you than another store. Here's another example. Boomer Fitness Co. They sell all the same stuff. Strength, cardio, flexibility, all the same stuff as recovery for athletes, except they are targeting baby boomers. So this store is going to attract baby boomers. Like if a baby boomer goes to recovery for athletes, they're not going to feel very good about it necessarily compared to boomer fitness equipment. And an athlete is going to feel much better buying from recovery for athletes than boomer fitness equipment. So you can niche down by your avatar and you can actually get around competition in a competitive space. So even though fitness is very competitive, if you sell to a specific person in that space, you can mitigate competition. The other way to mitigate competition is to sell just specific product types. So rather than having a everything fitness store, you could sell just massage tables or just massage chairs. And then, as I mentioned before, if someone goes to a store selling just massage chairs, they're going to feel that that store is an expert in that space, and you'll have a higher conversion rate because you're seen as an expert by Google and by the customer because you're selling just that one thing, which will also help you get around competition. As I mentioned kind of before here, it's great to have the framework of broad and narrow, but don't think of them as black or white. It falls on a spectrum. And ideally, the best case scenario is you can find something like Mobility Paradise where you walk that line between like niche and broad and you have your brand, a strong brand, but you sell a whole bunch of different product types. Like that is ideally the best case scenario. But there are excellent examples of very, very niche stores absolutely crushing it and very, very broad stores crushing it. So there's no right or wrong answer here. And just to conclude, take your niche research very seriously. Like don't rush through this. Make sure you get 5 to 10, fill out the research sheet that I said to you. Make sure you do it and really trust your gut. Obviously your gut knows best a lot of the time and it's God speaking to you a lot of the time. So trust it and learn to trust it, and that will serve you well, not only when you're doing your research, but in business overall. And there's no perfect science, as I said, like there's broad, niche, and you can get a happy medium and they can all work. There's not a right or wrong answer here at all. They can all work. Just do what feels right, and you can always adjust later on. You can pivot if needed. You can start a new store from scratch. It takes like a couple days max, but just take all the research points into consideration when you're choosing your niche and just do it what feels right. But I hope you found this video valuable on market research and selecting your niche. So before next week, when I release the next video, which is going to be on supplier research, make sure you do this. Consider 5 to 10 niches, do all the different research points on them, consider the advantages and disadvantages of a broad store versus a narrow store, really try and find that happy medium perhaps. And again, I greatly appreciate your support. I'm giving away thousands of dollars of free value here, and will continue to do so. All I ask in return is if you could please hit subscribe to my channel and like this video. Greatly appreciate it, and I will answer any and all comments below. So if you have any questions at all, let me know. And thank you for taking time out of your wonderful day to watch this video. And I will see you guys in next week's module, which is going to be module 3 on supplier research. And until then, cheers and have a great day.